The city of Vera Prime glittered like a jewel in the heart of the galaxy. Its crystal towers rose so high that their sharp points seemed to pierce the sky itself, reflecting the bright glow of two suns. Ships moved through the air in graceful patterns, their silver hulls shining like fish in a cosmic sea. The streets below were wide, clean, and filled with the tall, elegant people of the Zaith. They were known for their flawless features, their strength, and their calm, disciplined way of life. To the outside eye, this was a perfect society, but hidden in that perfection was a silence that hurt, a silence that fell upon those who did not meet the high standards of the Zaith. If someone was weak, sick, or marked by anything less than perfection, they were quietly left behind. No one spoke about them. No one looked at them. It was as if they did not exist. In one corner of this shining city lived Kalira. She was young, no more than 16 cycles, but she already carried the heavy weight of being different. Her skin, instead of being smooth and flawless like the others, had faint scars from a sickness she had suffered as a child. Her body was smaller, thinner, and her steps were often unsteady. When she tried to work or learn with others her age, she quickly grew tired. For the Zaith, who valued perfection above all, she was considered a failure. Every day Kalira walked through the grand streets and felt invisible. The vendors selling bright fruits did not call to her. The officials in Maentie, their fine robes never glanced her way. Even the other children avoided her, whispering as she passed. She was not openly harmed, but she was treated like air, seen and ignored. She lived in a small room in the lower quarters, far from the glowing towers. Her parents had once tried to care for her, but as years passed, they grew distant. They had other children, strong and gifted, who brought pride to the family name. Kalira, with her quiet steps and tired body, was left alone. Food was left at her door. Words of comfort were not. At night she would sit by her window staring at the stars and wondering what it would feel like if someone truly cared. A city too perfect, the society around her moved like a machine. The Zaith believed order was strength. Every citizen had a role, and every role had standards. They admired beauty, power, and flawless skill. Weakness was seen as dangerous, for it slowed the progress of the many, and so those who did not meet the measure were pushed aside, not with anger but with coldness. Kalira understood this. She had been told since she was small, "Do not expect others to help you. If you cannot rise, you must accept your place." She repeated those words to herself like a shield, yet no matter how much she tried to accept them, her heart always ached. Sometimes she would walk to the sky gardens, where the great flowers of Vera bloomed in colors that shimmered like jewels. Children played there under the watchful eyes of tutors. Kalira would sit quietly on a stone bench watching their laughter, their easy movements, their shining faces. She never joined. If she tried, the other children would drift away, as if she carried a shadow they could not touch. "Why am I here at all?" she whispered one afternoon, looking at the flowers. "If no one cares, what is the point of me?" Her voice was swallowed by the hum of the city. No one answered. Whispers of the feared one's life continued in this way for many cycles, quiet, cold, and empty. But then came the whispers. Across the streets, in the marketplaces and the quiet halls, the Zaith began to murmur about visitors. Humans. They had arrived in the galaxy years ago and their reputation spread quickly. They were not like the calm Zaith or the measured conquered races. They were unpredictable. Their emotions ran wild: joy, anger, sorrow, hope. They fought fiercely, laughed loudly, and grieved deeply. To the conquered, they were a puzzle, and some called them dangerous. Kalira heard the whispers in the markets as she searched for food. "They are reckless," one vendor muttered. "They will cause trouble," another said. "They are to be feared," an elder declared. But there were other voices too, softer, uncertain. "They fight for one another. They protect even their weakest. They say no one is ever left behind." Kalira listened, her heart beating faster. Protect even their weakest. Could that be true? In all her life, she had never seen anyone care for the weak. To the Zaith, weakness was shame. But these humans, They were feared not because they abandoned their own, but because they refused. That thought stayed with her like a spark in the darkness. A day in the market one afternoon, Kalira walked to the central market. It was the busiest place in the city, filled with shining stalls and glowing banners. She walked slowly, her steps weak but determined. She wanted to see if the rumors were true, if the humans had really come. The market was crowded. The air smelled of spice and fruit. Voices rose in songs of trade. Kalira tried to stay out of the way, but the press of bodies was heavy. She grew tired quickly, her vision blurring. Her legs shook, and before she could find a place to rest, she fell. The sound of her body hitting the polished stone ground echoed faintly. For a moment, silence fell around her. People looked, and then they turned away. One by one, the citizens of Vera Prime stepped back, giving her space, not out of concern, but out of rejection. No one moved to help her. No one offered a hand. Kalira tried to rise, her arms trembling, but her strength was gone. She felt the stares, the whispers. It is the weak girl again. She does not belong here. Her heart sank. It was as it had always been. She was invisible when she stood, but when she fell, she became something worse, an unwanted reminder. Her vision darkened. She thought, maybe this is how it ends. On a market floor, unseen, uncared for. The stranger who stopped. But then a shadow fell across her. A shape larger than any Zaith, a figure in dark armor carrying the mark of another world. A human. The crowd gasped. People stepped back further, not out of rejection this time, but out of fear. The human knelt beside Kalira, his face hard, but his eyes burning with something she had never seen before. Concern. Without hesitation, he reached out and lifted her gently, as if she were not a burden at all. His voice, deep and strange to her ears, cut through the silence. Does no one care? Will none of you help her? No one answered. The Zaith looked away. Some muttered about order, about rules. Others simply stayed silent. The human shook his head, anger flashing across his face. He adjusted his hold on Kalira and began to carry her through the stunned marketplace. The crowd parted quickly, whispers chasing him like shadows. Kalira, too weak to speak, stared up at him in wonder. She had fallen many times before. She had lain on the ground, unseen, ignored. But now, for the first time in her life, someone had stopped. Someone had cared. Her heart beat with something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. The spark that night, in the quiet of her small room aboard the human ship, Kalira thought about what had happened. She replayed it again and again. The moment when the crowd turned away, and the moment when he stepped forward. The difference was like night and day. The galaxy called humans dangerous. They called them reckless. But Kalira had seen something else. She had seen a person who did not measure her worth by her strength or her scars. She had seen someone who looked at her not with shame, but with care. And for the first time she wondered, if the feared humans could see her as worth saving, what else might they do that the rest of the galaxy thought unthinkable? The suns of Vera Prime rose bright and clear, washing the city in golden light. Towers of crystal gleamed as if the whole world was made of glass and fire. From above, the city looked flawless, shining with wealth, order, and beauty. But in the streets, something different was moving, something new. Whispers. The people of the Zaith spoke in hushed tones as they went about their work. Words drifted through the markets, across the learning halls, and even inside the council chambers. The subject of those whispers was the same everywhere. Humans, they had come. Rumors in the market, in the central market, where Kalira had once collapsed. Traders sold glowing fruits, metalwork, and bright fabrics. The air smelled of spice, sweet smoke, and hot stone. Customers moved carefully, speaking in low voices. They are reckless, muttered one merchant as he stacked his goods. His voice shook with unease. They fight like wild creatures, they laugh in war, they cannot be trusted. Not just reckless, another added, his eyes wide. I heard a human once fought an entire battle while badly injured. They would not stop, not even when defeat was certain. Across the aisle, a younger vendor spoke in a quieter voice. "But I heard something else," she said. "They say humans will protect their own no matter the cost, even the weak, even the broken. No one is left behind." The older merchant snorted. "Nonsense, that is not strength. That is weakness. In disguise. To protect the weak is to slow the strong." Yet still the whispers grew. Some feared the humans for their passion, their unpredictability. Others doubted the stories. And some quietly began to wonder, could it be true that these feared strangers cared for one another so much? Kaylira listened to every word. She had heard the rumors before, but now they were louder, sharper, impossible to ignore. She remembered the day in the market when a human had lifted her from the ground as if she mattered. She remembered his voice, full of anger at the coldness of the crowd. Those memories burned inside her, bright and impossible to forget. The council's concern high above the city, in a chamber of glass and light. The council of Vera gathered. 12 elders sat in a perfect circle, their robes glowing faintly in the morning sun. They spoke in calm tones, their faces smooth, their eyes sharp. "The humans must be watched," said Elder Vathar, his voice as smooth as stone. "They are too emotional, too unstable. If we allow their influence to spread, order will suffer." Elder Salith raised a hand. "But they are strong. Even the Concord fears their adaptability. To insult them openly would be unwise." A third elder leaned forward. "Strength is nothing if it lacks discipline. The humans are unpredictable. They fight not with rules but with wild instinct. They could bring chaos here. And yet," Elder Salith replied slowly, "they inspire loyalty. Their people follow them not from fear, but from trust. Is that not a form of power we do not fully understand?" Silence fell for a moment. None of the Zaith elders wanted to admit it, but it was true. The humans were different. They were dangerous not only because of their ability to fight, but because of the way they cared for each other. It gave them a kind of strength the Zaith could not measure. At last, Elder Vathar spoke again. "We will keep our distance. We will not allow their ways to disrupt our society. Let the Concord deal with them. On Vera Prime, we will hold to our own traditions." The council nodded in agreement. Yet outside their walls, the whispers continued to spread. Kaylira's curiosity. In the lower quarters, Kaylira walked the streets with a quiet step. She noticed the way people spoke more often about the visitors. Some avoided the subject, afraid. Others gossiped freely, describing the humans as both monsters and heroes. For Kaylira, it was not just rumor. She had seen one with her own eyes. She remembered his strong arms lifting her, his angry words spoken to the crowd. He had carried her as if she were worth saving. That moment had changed something deep inside her. She wanted to know more. She wanted to see them again. Her nights became restless. She dreamed of voices she did not understand, laughter that was loud but kind, hands reaching out not to push her away but to pull her close. Each morning she woke with her heart beating faster, filled with a strange mix of fear and hope. One evening, as the twin suns sank below the horizon, painting the city in red and gold, Kaylira walked toward the sky docks. This was where the UA great ships landed, where visitors from across the stars stepped onto Vera Prime. Her steps were weak but steady. She wrapped her thin cloak around her shoulders and kept her head low. If anyone asked why she was there, she would say nothing. The docks were busy, filled with workers guiding ships, lights flashing, engines humming. And there, at the far end, stood the vessel she had heard whispered about. A human starship. Its hull was not crystal and polished like the Zaith ships, but solid, dark, and practical. It looked less like a jewel and more like a blade. Kaylira's breath caught in her throat. She could see figures moving near the ramp. Humans, first sight of a crew. The humans were taller than she expected. Some wore armor, others simple uniforms. Their faces were strange but fascinating, full of expressions that shifted quickly, smiles, frowns, laughter. They moved with an energy the Zaith never showed, like fire flickering in every step. One of them, a woman with short dark hair, laughed loudly at something another had said. The sound was raw and unpolished, nothing like the smooth, careful tones of the Zaith. Yet it carried warmth. Another human crouched down to speak to a child from a different alien race, offering them a small metal toy. The child's eyes lit up with joy. Kalira stared. This was not the cold perfection of her people. This was something else. Something alive. She did not dare go closer, but she stayed for hours, watching from the shadows as the humans moved, spoke, and lived in a way so different from what she had known. The fear of the citizens. Not everyone was curious like Kalira. Many Zaith who passed the docks kept their distance. Some whispered warnings as they hurried by. Stay away from them, one citizen muttered. They are dangerous. They are too emotional, another said. They cannot control themselves. But Kalira noticed something important. For all their fear, none of the humans showed cruelty. They laughed, they argued, they helped one another with heavy crates. They shared food and stories. If this was danger, it was not the kind she had been taught to fear. She thought again of the day she had collapsed in the market. None of her own people had helped her, but a human had. And here she saw why. It was not just one person. It was who they were. A seed of change as Kalira walked home that night. The city around her seemed colder than before. The shining towers looked less like beauty and more like cages of light. The people moved like shadows, avoiding contact, their faces smooth and empty. She thought of the humans again. Their loud laughter, their quick smiles, their reaching hands. They were called dangerous. But perhaps the real danger was what they might awaken in others. For the first time, Kalira felt something grow inside her that she had never felt so strongly before. A question. What if the humans are not to be feared, but to be followed? The council's warning days later, a public message spread through the city. The council spoke in calm voices, their words broadcast on every screen and every hall. Citizens of Vera Prime, Elder Vathar declared, you will hear many rumors of the humans. You must remember they are not like us. They are reckless. They are emotional. They are dangerous. Their ways are not ours. Do not be tempted by their chaos. Remain strong. Remain perfect. Remain Zaith. The message ended. But in the markets, in the halls, in the quiet corners of the city, the whispers only grew louder. Some repeated the council's warnings. Others doubted. And a few began to wonder, just as Kalira did, if the council feared something more than danger. Perhaps they feared change. Kalira's resolve. That night, Kalira stood by her small window, staring at the stars. She remembered the human who had lifted her, the crew she had watched, the laughter she had heard. The galaxy called them dangerous. The council called them reckless. But Kalira knew something else. They cared, and for someone who had lived her whole life unseen, that simple truth was more powerful than any fear. She whispered into the night, her voice soft but steady. I will find them again. And with that promise, Kalira's journey truly began. The suns of Vera Prime burned high above the crystal towers. The streets were busy, alive with the careful order of Zaith life. Merchants called softly to customers, guards moved with silent steps, and children walked in neat groups under the watch of tutors. Everything appeared perfect, smooth, clean, controlled. But for Kalira, perfection was only another word for loneliness. Since the day the human officer had lifted her from the market floor, her thoughts had been filled with him. She remembered the strength of his arms, the sharp sound of his voice as he demanded help from the crowd. She remembered how no one else had moved, how her people had looked away, and she remembered how, for the first time in her life, someone had seen her, not as a burden but as a person worth saving. That memory stayed with her like a flame. It warmed her when the nights were cold. It gave her strength when she felt too tired to walk. And it filled her heart with a quiet question. Why would a human do what no Zaith ever dared? Another day in the market a week later, Kalira returned to the central market. Her body was still weak, her steps slow, but she wanted to be among people. She wanted to feel the life of the city, even if it often ignored her. The market was loud that day. Stalls overflowed with fruit that glowed like fire, cloth that shimmered like liquid light, and metal tools that hummed with energy. Voices mixed, with the hum of ships passing overhead. Kalira moved carefully through the crowd. As always, no one looked at her. To the Zaith, she was invisible. She was used to that. She thought she was prepared for it. But the heat of the suns was heavy. The air was thick with spice. Her body, always fragile, began to shake. Her vision blurred. She reached for a stall to steady herself, but her hand slipped, and once again she collapsed. The crowd turns away. The sound of her fall was small compared to the noise of the market. Still, a few nearby Zaith glanced her way. For a moment, their eyes flickered with recognition. Then, one by one, they looked away. "It is her again," someone whispered. "The weak one. She should not be here." No one moved closer. No one offered a hand. They stepped around her, careful not to touch. Some even walked away more quickly, as if her presence might stain their perfection. Kalira pressed her hands against the cold stone floor, trying to push herself up. But her arms trembled, her chest burned. She was too weak. She could feel the stairs on her back, heavy and cold. Her heart sank. She thought, "Perhaps this is how it always will be. I will fall, and no one will care. The human returns." But then, through the shifting crowd came the sound of heavy steps, not the soft, graceful steps of the Zaith, but the firm, powerful stride of someone else. A shadow fell across her. When Kalira lifted her head, she saw him, the same human officer who had saved her before. His armor caught the light, his face was stern, and his eyes blazed with anger at what he saw. It was Commander Elias Varon. He knelt beside her without hesitation. "You again," he said, his voice rough, but filled with concern. "Why are you on the ground? Are you hurt?" Kalira tried to speak, but her throat was dry. She could only shake her head weakly. Elias turned sharply toward the crowd. His voice thundered, loud enough to silence the entire market. "Does no one care? She has fallen. Will none of you help her?" The Zaith froze. Some lowered their eyes. Others shifted uncomfortably. But not one of them moved. Elias's jaw tightened. His anger filled the air like a storm. "Shame on you," he said. "You walk in a city of light, but your hearts are darker than any battlefield I've seen." And then, without waiting for an answer, he lifted Kalira into his arms as if she weighed nothing at all. Gasps and whispers. The marketplace erupted in whispers. A human touched her. They are dangerous, reckless. Why would he care? For her? Some shook their heads, some stepped back in fear, others stared in shock, but Elias did not care. He held Kalira gently, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. To him, the stares of the crowd meant nothing. What mattered was the frail girl in his arms. Kalira's heart pounded. She had never been held like this, not with disgust, not with duty, but with care. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but her voice refused to come. All she could do was cling weakly to the fabric of his uniform, afraid that if she let go, this moment would vanish. The refusal of help Elias carried her to the nearest medical station, his stride strong and sure. When the doors slid open, a Zaith medic looked up in surprise. "This girl needs help," Elias said firmly. "She collapsed in the market." The medic frowned, his eyes landing on Kalira with cold recognition. "Her, she is known to us, weak, fragile. We do not waste our resources on such cases. She has no place here." Elias's eyes narrowed. "She is alive. That is reason enough. Treat her." The medic shook his head. "It is not our way." For a long moment, silence filled the room. The air seemed to thicken. Then Elias stepped forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "Then your way is broken." Without waiting for permission, he turned and carried Kalira back into the streets. The medic called after him, but Elias ignored the words. His jaw was set, his eyes hard. If the Zaith would not help, then he would. Aboard the human ship, Kalira barely remembered the journey. She felt the cool air of the docks, the steady beat of Elias's heart against her cheek, the sound of voices, speaking in a language she did not understand. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer in the market or the city. She lay on a soft bed inside a ship. The air was warmer here, filled with the scent of metal and something sharp like oil. The walls were not shining crystal, but strong steel. Humans moved around her. Some wore uniforms, others simple clothes. Their faces were full of expression, concern, kindness, curiosity. One of them, a woman with short hair, smiled as she placed a small device near Kalira's chest. "She's weak," the woman said. "But nothing we can't handle. She just needs food, water, and rest." Elias stood nearby, arms crossed, watching, closely. His face was stern, but Kalira could see relief in his eyes. "Take care of her," he said. "She's one of ours now." A new world days passed. Kalira rested on the ship, slowly regaining strength. The humans visited her often. Some brought her food, others told her stories of distant worlds, battles, and adventures. They spoke with warmth, their laughter loud and unrestrained. At first, Kalira was shy. She had never been treated this way before. But little by little, she began to smile. She began to laugh softly at their jokes. She began to feel safe. She watched the humans closely. They argued sometimes, but never with cruelty. They teased one another, but with affection. They worked together with ease, always ready to help. And when one of them was tired or unwell, the others stepped in without hesitation. It was exactly as the whispers had said. No one was left behind. Kalira's wonder one evening, Kalira sat by a window, staring out at the stars. Elias came to stand beside her. "You are quiet," he said. Kalira turned to him, her eyes wide. "Why? Why what? Why did you help me?" "No one else would, but you. You did." Elias looked out at the stars for a long moment. Then he said, "Because you needed help, that's reason enough." Kalira frowned slightly. "But I am weak. My people say I am useless." Elias's voice grew firm. "They are wrong. You are alive. That means you matter. Weak, strong, it doesn't change that truth. Don't ever believe otherwise." Kalira's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She whispered softly, "Thank you." For the first time, Elias's stern face softened into a small smile. The beginning of change news of what happened spread quickly across Vera Prime. The story of the human officer who carried a weak girl through the marketplace, who defied the medics who cared for someone no Zaith would touch, it spread like fire. Some mocked it. "The humans are foolish. They waste their strength." Others whispered with fear. "If they care even for the weak, how strong must they truly be together?" And a few quietly began to wonder. Perhaps their way is not weakness. Perhaps it is something else. But for Kalira, the meaning was simple. She had been invisible all her life. No one had saved her. No one had cared, until the feared humans did the unthinkable. The ship of the humans, Resolute Dawn, drifted like a dark blade above Vera Prime. Its hull was strong steel, not the shining crystal of Zaith vessels. To the Zaith it looked crude. To Kalira it looked alive. Inside, the ship was full of sounds she had never known before. Boots striking the floor, voices rising and falling, laughter echoing down the halls. It felt chaotic compared to the cold silence of her city, yet it also felt warmer, more human. For Kalira, each day aboard the ship was like stepping into another world. Kindness in small things, the crew treated her as if she belonged. They did not turn away from her scars or her weakness. Instead, they gave her food, guided her when she stumbled, and included her in their conversations. A woman named Lieutenant Mara brought her warm meals and sat with her while she ate. "You need strength," she said, smiling. "And not just strength of body, strength of spirit, too." A young engineer, Dax, showed her small machines he had built. "This one helps clean the air," he explained proudly. "This one fixes broken lights. Not everything has to be a weapon." Even the hardened soldiers, men and women with scars of their own, treated her with respect. They told her stories of battles not to frighten her, but to show her that fear could be overcome. For the first time in her life, Kalira felt like she mattered. The humans did not measure her by strength or perfection. They measured her simply by the fact that she was alive. A growing rumor back in the city below, the story of Kalira spread quickly. Word moved from the market to the halls, from the halls to the towers, and soon across the entire planet. Some Zaith scoffed. The humans waste their time. Caring for the weak will destroy them. Others grew uneasy. If they treat even the useless as valuable, what unity might they have among themselves? How could we face them if all their people fight with such loyalty? And still others whispered, words that no one dared say aloud before. Perhaps we are the ones who are wrong. The Council of Vera heard these whispers. They did not like them. The council reacts in their chamber of light. The elders gathered once again. This is dangerous, Elder Vathor said, his tone sharp. The humans interfere with our ways. They make the people question our traditions. If such thoughts spread, our order will collapse. Elder Salith frowned. But what the humans did was simple. They helped a girl. Is that truly so dangerous? It is unthinkable, Vathor snapped. To raise up the weak is to dishonor the strong. Our society is built on perfection. If we allow the idea that imperfection is acceptable, everything will fall apart. The council voted quickly. They would demand that the humans release Kalira back into Zaith hands. They would make it clear that no outsider could change their ways. A quiet evening on the ship, Kalira sat by the window of the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before her, each one shining like a promise. She pressed her hand against the glass, thinking of the life she had left behind. She remembered the streets where no one looked at her, the benches where she had sat alone, the day she collapsed unseen. And then she remembered Elias lifting her, his voice like thunder in the market. She whispered softly, "Why me? Why did they save me?" Commander Elias entered quietly and stood beside her. His presence was steady, like a shield. "You wonder why?" he asked. Kalira nodded. "I am nothing. My people say so. I have always been nothing. Yet you carried me." Elias's eyes were firm. "Because you are not nothing. You are someone. You breathe, you hope, you dream. That makes you worth saving." Kalira's eyes filled with tears, though she did not fully understand why. She had never been told such words before. The council's demand. The next morning, a message arrived from the Council of Vera. The crew gathered to hear it. On the screen, Elder Vathor's face appeared calm but stern. His voice carried the weight of authority. "Humans," he said, "you have taken one of our citizens, a girl named Kalira. You will return her to us at once. She is unworthy of protection. Your actions interfere with our traditions. Release her, or face consequences." The room was silent. The humans stared at the screen, their jaws tight, their eyes burning with disbelief. Then Elias spoke, his voice low but full of steel. "Unworthy of protection. She is alive. That is all that matters. We will not return her to a life where she is treated as less than nothing." Vathor's face hardened. "Then you defy us." Elias did not hesitate. "If defiance means compassion, then yes. We defy you." The screen went dark. Division among the Zaith news of the Council's demand spread across the planet. Some Zaith supported it. The humans must obey. They cannot force their ways upon us. But others began to speak more boldly. The humans did what we would not. They cared. Perhaps their way is not weakness. Perhaps it is strength. For the first time in living memory, cracks appeared in the perfect surface of Zaith society. Doubt had entered their hearts. Kalira's transformation. Kalira felt torn. She was afraid of the council. She knew the anger of her people could be harsh, even if it was silent. Yet she also felt something new within her, something the humans had given her. Hope. She began to walk more often among the crew, speaking with them, learning from them. She helped Dax repair a small machine, though her hands shook. She shared food with Mara and laughed softly at her stories. She even joined a group of soldiers as they trained. watching the way they encouraged one another instead of competing. For the first time she felt not like a shadow but like a light, small, fragile, but real. The broadcast. The council, angered by the growing whispers, demanded a public broadcast. They wanted the humans to explain their actions before the eyes of all Vera. The broadcast was arranged in the grand square. Thousands of Zaith gathered, their faces smooth and watchful. Screens across the city flickered to life. Elias stood before the crowd, Kalira at his side. His armor gleamed under the twin suns. His voice rang out strong and clear. "You call us dangerous," he said. "You call us reckless. Perhaps we are. But we are also something more. We care. We fight for one another. We protect even the weakest among us, because strength without compassion is nothing." The crowd murmured, shocked. No one had spoken such words in public before. Elias continued. This girl, Kalira, was cast aside by her own people. Invisible. Forgotten. Not because she chose it, but because she was born weaker, and yet she is still alive, still breathing, still dreaming. That makes her worth saving. And if you will not, then we will. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some looked away, ashamed. Others looked at Kalira with new eyes. For Kalira, standing in the light beside Elias, it felt as though her heart might burst. She had never been seen before. Now the entire world was looking at her, not as a mistake, but as proof. The shockwave. The council tried to silence the moment. They called Elias. Reckless accused him of disrespect. But the damage was done. The people had heard. The whispers grew into voices. The voices grew into questions, and for the first time the Zaith began to doubt the perfection they had always believed unshakable, all because a feared human had done the unthinkable. Kalira's new place. That night, back aboard the ship, Kalira sat with Elias and Mara. She felt different, though she could not explain how. Stronger, braver. They will hate me now, she said softly. The council, many of my people. They will call me weak forever. Mara smiled gently. Then let them. Weak does not mean worthless. Weak does not mean invisible. You are proof of that, Elias added, his voice firm. And you are not alone anymore. You never will be again. Kalira looked at them, her heart steady. For the first time she believed it. The turning point, the act of the humans had done more than save a girl. It had shaken a world. It had planted a seed of change in the hearts of the Zaith. Some would fight it. Some would deny it. But others would carry it forward, and Kalira, once forgotten, was now the center of it all. No one saved her before. No one cared. Once its streets had been silent with order. Its people had walked with pride, never questioning their way of life. Weakness was ignored, imperfection erased. To the Zaith, this was strength. To doubt it was unthinkable. But after the day the humans stood in the grand square, after Elias's words rang through the city, something changed. The perfect silence cracked. Whispers grew louder. Questions spread like sparks across dry stone, and at the center of it all stood a girl who had once been invisible. Kalira. The rumbling streets, in the markets, voices rose in debate. Did you see it? The human lifted her, spoke for her. They defy the council, they should leave. No, perhaps they are right, perhaps we have been wrong. Neighbors argued openly. Some shouted that tradition must hold. Others, with eyes full of new light, whispered that maybe perfection was not everything. Children began to ask questions their tutors could not answer. Why can the humans care for everyone, but we cannot? Why must weakness be shame? The council tried to control the unrest. They sent messages across the city, warning of the danger of human influence. They spoke of chaos, of recklessness, of the need for order. But their words no longer fell on silent ears. The people had seen something, with their own eyes, compassion, and once seen it could not be unseen. Kalira's fear aboard the Resolute Dawn. Kalira felt the weight of it all. She sat in her small room staring at her hands. Once those hands had felt useless, too weak, too fragile. Now, those same hands had been seen by an entire world. Her heart trembled. "What if I am not strong enough?" she whispered. Mara, the kind lieutenant, sat beside her. She placed a gentle hand on Kalira's shoulder. "You are strong," she said firmly. "Strength is not only in the body. It is in standing when others push you down, and you have stood." "But the council hates me," Kalira said. "My people hate me." Elias entered then, his voice steady. "Not all of them. Many are starting to see the truth. And even if they did all hate you, you are not alone anymore." Kalira lifted her eyes. She saw the fire in Elias's gaze, the certainty in Mara's smile. Slowly she nodded. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps strength was not perfection, but persistence. The council strikes back. The council, however, would not allow their authority to be broken. In their chamber of glass, Elder Vathar's voice was sharp. "The humans must leave at once. They poison our people with their words. If they refuse, we will make an example of them." Some elders hesitated. But to strike against humans, is that wise? The Concord itself fears their wrath. Vathar's eyes burned with pride. "If we lose our traditions, we lose everything. Better to risk defiance than let compassion infect us." And so the council announced a decree. The humans were no longer welcome. They were to release Kalira, leave Vera Prime, and never return. The message was delivered to the Resolute Dawn. Elias's decision, in the command chamber of the human ship. The crew gathered to hear the decree. The words of the council played, through the speakers. "Return the girl. Leave our world. Your ways are not ours. Defy us, and you will be enemies of Vera Prime." Silence filled the room. Every human turned to Commander Elias. Kalira stood at the edge of the chamber, her heart pounding. She wanted to speak, to say she would return if it meant peace. But before she could, Elias rose. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of iron. "We will not return her." Gasps filled the room. Kalira's breath caught. Elias continued, his voice louder now. "She is a living being. She matters. To abandon her would be to betray everything we are. If that makes us enemies of the council, then so be it." The crew responded with nods, with words of agreement, with fire in their eyes. No one questioned him. To them, it was simple. No one was left behind. The broadcast to the galaxy. But Elias did not stop with defiance. He demanded that his words be sent not only to the council, but to the entire Concord. In front of a great camera, with Kalira beside him, he spoke again. His words were carried on every screen, every channel, across star systems. "You call us dangerous," Elias began. "And perhaps we are, but not because we fight, not because we adapt. We are dangerous because we care, because we will not abandon the weak, because we will not allow the forgotten to stay forgotten." His voice grew stronger. This girl, Kalira, was cast aside by her own people, invisible, alone. Yet she is alive. And to us that is enough. Life itself is enough. If that truth frightens you, then fear us. But understand this, we will never stop. Not here, not anywhere. If you abandon your own, we will not. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, the words struck like lightning. Reactions. Across the stars in the halls of the Concord, leaders shifted uncomfortably. Some called the humans reckless. Others spoke of their bravery. Still others, quietly, wondered if compassion could truly be a weapon as sharp as steel. On distant worlds, the forgotten and the weak heard the words and felt hope. They whispered, "The humans will come." And on Vera Prime itself, the people were divided. Some shouted against the humans, demanding they leave. But others, more than ever before, looked at Kalira with something new in their eyes. Not pity, not disgust, but respect. Kalira's realization. That night, Kalira sat once again by the observation window of the Resolute Dawn. The stars stretched endlessly before her, but now they no longer felt cold. They felt alive, full of promise. Mara joined her. Do you know what you are now? She asked gently. Kalira shook her head. I am still weak. No, Mara said firmly. You are proof. Proof that even the weakest life is worth saving. Proof that no one is truly invisible. Elias approached, standing tall behind them. You are a symbol now, Kalira. Not just for your people, for the galaxy. You show that strength without compassion is empty, and that compassion itself can be strength. Kalira's chest tightened. For so long she had been nothing. Now she was something she never dreamed of. A reason for others to question, to hope, to change. The Council's silence. The Council of Vera did not answer Elias's broadcast. They remained silent in their chambers, their faces cold, their pride wounded. They could not strike the humans, for they feared their power. They could not silence their own people, for the whispers had grown too strong. For the first time, the Council found itself powerless, and all because of one act of compassion. A new beginning, as the resolute Dawn prepared to leave orbit. Kalira stood on the deck looking down at the shining city of her birth. She felt no hatred, no anger, only a quiet sadness for those still trapped in silence. But she also felt hope, because now the silence was broken, and once broken it could never fully return. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Are you ready for what comes next? Kalira nodded slowly. Yes. I want to see the galaxy. I want to see what else your people will do. The things everyone else calls unthinkable. Elias smiled. Then welcome to the crew. The legacy in time. The story of Kalira and the humans spread further. Across worlds, outcasts and forgotten children whispered her name. Leaders debated, councils argued, traditions trembled. The Zaith still clung to their perfection, but cracks had formed. Change had begun, carried not by force, but by compassion. And in every corner of the galaxy, one phrase grew louder. The humans will come. Final words. Kalira had once been invisible, forgotten, left to collapse in the streets. No one saved her. No one cared, until the feared humans did the unthinkable, and because of that, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again.